says it's starting. It was 4 o'clock, but it still says it's starting. But it says we're live. Let me check.
Make sure we're live.
Yeah,
Turn comments off. They're off.
that we're live. This is we're live.
Present.
City Secretary.
We do expect Vicky to be here shortly. She was with the class. All right, so we'll go to agenda item number 2, discuss, consider lease option discussion between the City of Ranger and the RAF for the Ranger Antique Airfield.
Is Adam on?
I have not got him on the phone yet. Do we want to go ahead and call him now?
I think we put him on in the beginning, that way if anybody had questions, including us.
Okay.
And if it was okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I was wanting to do kind of an introduction,
Okay.
just to get him up to speed. People can add to that as they like.
Maybe you can put your speakerphone near the
Hello?
speaker.
On one. Let's see
Do you
here.
need his?
I got it.
Okay.
Do what?
Put his speakerphone near the mic.
I've got it right here.
This is Adam Bibles.
Adam, this is Mayor Archer. I'm with the council, and we are in a meeting to discuss lease options between the City of Ranger and the Ranger Antique Airfield.
Okay.
We just started, so we're going to be, of course, discussing options, but we've got you on the phone so that we can certainly gain legal expertise into the situation.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll sit here. I'll put it on mute. That way I'm not interrupting y'all, but I'll be listening.
Okay?
You might put that on the wood up there and then put your phone up there as well so people can hear it better. Yeah, if he needs to chime in.
Okay. All right, you hearing us okay?
I can hear you. I've heard somebody in the background, but I couldn't make it out.
Okay, yeah, they were just talking to me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so let's open the floor to discussion.
Yeah, I've got a couple of, I'll speak really loud, Adam. If it's too loud, tell me. If it's not loud enough, let me know that.
I can hear you. Perfect. Sounds good.
Okay, so, we had a discussion in executive session with you, and everybody, I think, knows that I'm not a fan of executive sessions to begin with. And if you remember, we spoke about potentially having a town hall so that not only the council could ask questions, but the community could hear that as well. And I guess there's the potential of a question here from the group. But one of the things I'd like to do for the benefit of the group and just as a refresher for you is just kind of talk about where we're at as I see it, and other council members can jump in if they have additional information or if they disagree. So we had a lease that we amended when I was on the council previously, and the focus of that lease was to extend the existing lease with RAMF with a couple of goals. And one of those goals was to have an opportunity to restore the antique hangar, potentially making it a museum. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure that we protected and historically preserved our antique airfield. One of the things that we were looking at to go along with that is the antique airfield had contacts with people that were interested in hangar homes. One of the things I feel like, I'm not sure the reason why, it doesn't really matter, is I think it's been mischaracterized as HOAs. One of the things that we asked is, as we had people invest in hangar homes out there, that they keep those in a vintage style. What we didn't want is somebody just, and I'm speaking as the council, back then, we didn't want somebody just throwing up a metal building and pulling a trailer house next to it. We wanted something that we would be proud of along the lines of these golf course houses. And so one of the things that we did is we provided that to our previous law firm and asked them to make sure that we had corrected and had everything included in the contract that we needed to protect the city's requirements. And that law firm reviewed it. They made some changes and they said that this is a good contract for the city of Ranger. And these are my opinions as I remember them, but the main thing is the mayor went ahead and signed that agreement. The airfield went ahead and used some of their contacts to start breaking ground on the hangar homes. We were excited about that, even though they were going to be vintage style, so we were kind of restricting how they looked, but it wasn't an HOA. But we were going to get taxable facilities, and we were going to bring investment in the town. One of the people that was investing had already bought 4 buildings. Some of the types of things he was looking at was a steakhouse. He was also looking at a facility for sportsmen, particularly for those going to exotic ranches in the area. And so we were excited about not only having that taxable hangar, but also the businesses and potentially some of the leadership that they could bring in if they moved to Ranger. So where we're at now is at the end of this, the legal part is done. We're not here to rehash the legal part. We're not courts, we're not lawyers. But what we have currently is we have a lease between the city and the RAMF that we as a council voted to restore. As I understand it, the RAMF has not accepted that yet. It was pending whether or not they were going to follow up on the court case. But it's basically kind of like if I rented a house and told you to leave, and then I said, no, you can go ahead and come in, and you've already made other plans, I can't force you back in. So we're in a situation where we need to come back together with our airfield. I think as the council, we're interested in that historic preservation. A couple of the questions, and maybe you can make a couple of notes and just speak to some of these, is the original agreement was made with the RAMF, which was directed by a council before me, instead of the RAF. So if we do an agreement with the RAF to some of those protections, if you could speak to those now, that would be that would be great. But that included things like performance clauses, maybe clawbacks and those types of things. So that was the introduction. I'll pause and see if any of the council members or the airfield has anything in addition to that. And then if you could answer some of those questions, it'd be great. So does anybody else have any additions?
I think you were pretty spot on.
Okay.
Absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I recall as well. I mean, those are, you can waive immunity, but still have other remedies available, and some other ways to secure performance. But I like to write agreements that we contemplate if it goes well, we contemplate if it goes okay, we contemplate if it really goes south. And so usually having some type of provision or opportunity to cure and some notice requirements help that. But also the surety bonds or performance bonds, those are other tools that you have in the arsenal that you can use to affect an outcome that you're trying to achieve.
Okay. What about the lease itself? Since you're our attorney on our behalf right now, as we go forward, because this is really just a discussion session. We're not going to have any action taken today. We're just asking you questions, and you're kind of on the spot. But would you go with a new contract, and then we would just figure out how to resolve the old one, or would you try to modify?
Yeah, I think you can go either way. There's no correct answer. So you can absolutely if it's authorized, and again, I'm kind of flying a little blind because I do not and have not seen a copy of the last version of the agreement. But in general sense, ordinarily you can assign contracts, so that's an option. In your case here, it sounds like the terms you're wanting to add maybe more than just an assignment, and therefore I would lean more towards let's take what we have that works and then just change the things that aren't working or they need to be modified and go from there and have a new agreement that's, I'm not saying start from ground zero. I'm saying you got a pretty good outline and everybody generally understands what's going on. So let's just review the language, make sure we're all on the same page, and then add those visions about indemnification and surety bonds and that kind of stuff is kind of how I would recommend. But again, there's more than one way to skin that cat.
Yeah, and Mr. Calvert's here, and he stepped aside from his table. He's representing the airport. One of the things that we're going to have to address is, and we don't know if it's going to be appealed yet or not, but there was an order about the payment of legal fees. I think for the community, I've seen and I've heard some confusion about combining legal fees, trying to protect people on a recall as being part of that number. And I don't feel like that would be appropriate. It should be the legal fees associated with the court case. But also, the airfield has acquired additional property, actual land. And so some of the things that we're going to have to consider as we go forward in the new lease agreement is how we would address the court findings, as well as making sure that there was compensation for the land that was already purchased, if that's going to be part of the antique airfield. And is that pretty close from the airfield perspective? And if I got it wrong, you're not going to embarrass me.
I've canceled the air show. I am frustrated because I've done everything the city told me to do, whether it was right or wrong. Having trust going forward is going to be difficult. For instance, and what I'm wary of with any attorneys, no offense Adam, is I put on the screen from 2022 where Gerald says, Barbara, hope your day is well. This is the agreement that we have with the airfield. Can you take a look at it and see if it needs amendments? And she reviewed, sent back, I reviewed, but I would like to review the underlying contract to ensure what we're modifying. Please forward. And then the city manager, because they could not find the contract down here, the city manager says, Jared, please see Barbara's request below. So then I send the original lease, because the city could not find their copy, to Barbara at Knight Law Firm, to which Barbara responds, Mr. Costanza and Mr. Calvert, I have reviewed, and while I have not received a call back from TxDOT on the requirements, if any, that may be required by the state to transfer a municipal public airport to a private entity, so they acknowledge that it was supposed to go to a private entity. I wanted to continue to move this along. You will see within the document attached that I put language in that requires compliance with anything that TxDOT may require. Other changes that I discussed with Mr. Calvert are that this will be an automatic right of reversion. There was actually a side thread where she said that she wanted to put a right of reversion in automatic, as well as a document that will transfer this property, and it will be a special warranty deed. This will protect both parties. So we have Knight Law Firm signing this, saying this will protect both parties. One is a red line version, the other one is clean. Please let me know if you have any questions. To which I responded, only adjustment I see is that it needs to say in 3, it maybe should read where hangar sits. She had put something else in there. Oh, she didn't put sit, she just said hangar, period. Knight Law Firm responds back, great catch, here's a revised clean version. Because the city was so inept in doing what they should do, they didn't even know where the contract was, I sent an email at 4:07 to Savannah, the city secretary at the time. Can you print this for the commissioners, the attached, from Ranger's attorney for the council meeting? Thank you. So we had a council meeting that night, and the council approved it in a 46-minute executive session. And so we thought we were entering an agreement, something that was done in good faith, that it was a win not only for the Airfield Foundation to have people paying into a maintenance fund monthly to maintain the airport where I don't have to volunteer out there for the rest of my life. I can leave Ranger. It was a win for the citizens because these hangars were going to be taxed, and they were going to get taxed until the end of time. Water rates were going to, water sales were going to go up immediately. The kids program was getting launched off the ground. We went and bought a Cessna. I flew it in, and an instructor was moving in. We broke ground. A guy sold his house for $1.4 million on another runway to move to Ranger. An airplane business, restoration business with Florida, said he wanted to move here and expressed that in a letter to the city. It was a win for everyone. And now, how do we move forward? Because I think we need to establish what you want. Do you want the hangar restored? Do you want the hangar demolished? Do you want the foundation to leave? Do you want to sell the airport? Do you want us to buy the airport? What do you want? And that's what the foundation wants to know. And we did what the city wanted us to do. And then it gets convoluted even further, because in 2018, when Eagle Flying Museum decided they didn't want to move here full time, gave the hangar to the foundation. Eagle Flying Museum gave their unconstructed hangar to the foundation and said in an email, it was September 10th, I believe, to the city manager and the mayor, saying, we have a right in the lease to hand it over to another party, and we're going to request that you hand it over to RAF. At that time, the city manager and mayor call me in and say, we're not going to sign it over to RAF. Your girlfriend's on the board. She was a jet pilot. And there's only 3 members, meaning that you and your girlfriend can outvote the 3rd member and we won't sign it to you. They said explicitly, we can't survive that politically. And I go, well, I'm not going to ask her to resign. And so Joe Pilgrim, mayor, said, make a new nonprofit. And Chad Roberts, the manager, said, and the council gets to pick the 5. So I went to the Airfield Foundation board that was already a 501c3 that already had the bank accounts and said the city won't sign the contract over us unless we create a new nonprofit. And they authorized in a meeting for me to create a new nonprofit. And I made up a name, RAMF, Maintenance Foundation, to satisfy the city. It's in the minutes from, I think, September or October of 2018, where the council approved the 5 board members. The council had the right to pick the 5 board members, and they picked the 5. And then they signed a contract over to the foundation, the new foundation, 13 days after it was created. A 30-year lease with a 13-day-old company. And so I didn't go create a bank account. I didn't file for 501c3 status, because why would I burden myself with 2 990 filings that are on average 35 pages each? Why would I open up more bank accounts? We already had a checking and savings. Why would I open up 2 more? Why would I file for the $600 or $700 501c3 status? I did everything that the city asked me to do. And to this day, Ranger Airfield Maintenance Foundation does not have a bank account. The money for the attorney's fees would leave a donor's bank account and was wired directly to the attorneys for the city, or for the foundation. So RAMF does not even have a bank account. The city said create. So like me or hate me, when you look at the facts and you look at the minutes and you watch the tapes, this is what people don't understand when they come down here and they hate me right out the gate because I'm belligerent. I would think everybody would be mad because I did everything the city told me to do. So I think we need to establish, what does the city want? If the city wants us to restore the hangar, we'll restore the hangar. Once the hangar is restored, we'll entertain bringing the air show back. If you don't want the hangar restored, why would I raise the hundreds of thousands of dollars or give the hundreds of thousands of dollars to restore your building? The city doesn't have a pool. The city's got terrible streets. Now I'm partially responsible for it, just like you. But we're trying, collectively, when I sit at that table with you, we're trying to save a town that's long been lost. And when you've been treated like this, when you have the city's manager say, I need you to check this out and approve this, Knight Law Firm, and Knight Law Firm says, okay, we approve it. And the council unanimously approved it. And in good faith, we broke ground. How do we get that trust back? And instead of looking at this evidence, the city claimed immunity. So how do we, if we sign a new contract and a new council comes in and says exactly what the former manager said, what would it do to your investors if we backed up and said we just want to sell it to you and you pay us, or else we're not going to let you build? Would you sign up for this all over again with government immunity?
No.
So what I would like, and I came here in 21 frustrated that nobody else flew in Ranger, because everything I was doing, every blade of grass I mowed would all be for nothing. So I came to you guys, and I say to you, I came to the council and said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to keep the airfield mowed until 2048? Or do you want me to facilitate people building? Because people are willing to build in Ranger. So I say that same thing 4 years later, people not building here now, people building in other communities. So I come to you guys with the same thing. What do you want me to do? If you want me to save the airfield, I'll save it. If you want me to bow out, y'all sell it to somebody else for the $2 million that Commissioner Moyes wrote in writing saying it was worth, list it for $2 million. Now, if you list it for $2 million, we're going to ask as a foundation what you guys agreed to, that Knight Law Firm approved, is pay for the hangar that we built. And it's not worth $2 million. So it's not like I'm trying to get all the money if y'all try to sell it. You're not going to sell it for $2 million, but if you do, we ask for fair compensation of that hangar. Because that does have value to somebody.
I think we're all in agreement that we want to preserve our history. I think everybody can agree to that. We don't want to sell off Rangers history. We don't have that. None of us have that thought in mind. We know the value of the air show. We know the value of the work that's been done out there. And I, for one, could see the benefit of having these people out there paying taxes, the resources that it would bring to our town, the potential investments that could come along with it. It was a win-win for everybody involved. It was going to be a great thing. You know, we would be like a lot of other towns out there. We'd have this developed airfield, you know, showpiece, a true showpiece. Other people would be wanting to come in behind that. You know, it's going to bring all kinds of things. These people, with their resources, they could relocate their businesses like Rob wanted to, who currently stated, I've seen, he's been watching us on social media, and he said, wow, the negativity coming out of there, I would never want to live there.
He said to his wife, or 20-year girlfriend Jill, I'm glad we didn't move there.
Yeah.
And he'll put that in writing. This isn't something I'm just trying to tell you guys to, the sky's falling, but there's a tremendous amount of damage that has been done. And, if you want to say it's me, but just so you know that this isn't some new statement about taxes. In 2022, after the contract was signed, the city sent us 31 questions, and we answered them in 2 days. And it says right here, number 14, and we should probably post these questions online. Will the leasee and subleasee guarantee that the properties will not become tax exempt? And what we said was, and the first sentence might alarm some, but you have to listen to the whole thing. RAMF cannot and will have no control over private property owners other than restrictions placed on aviation use, architectural restrictions, and airport maintenance operations. Much like a normal city relationship to homeowners, there is no legal method to impose this kind of restriction on property owners. You cannot say this land will always be tax generating, guaranteed, or we get it back. According to our attorney. We went on further to say a person cannot have their residence in a tax exempt building without risking losing their tax exempt status or possibly breaking the law. If in the future a hangar owner wishes to will their hangar to a nonprofit, say for example Ranger College or the ISD, to be used in an aviation program, which they're all over the country, it is their right to do so, and for said organization not to be obligated to pay tax per their legal rights. Another example is if a residences. We went on to say, all that said, the current Ranger builders have no intentions to roll their hangars into nonprofit, as they would lose ownership of their investment and the ability for their heirs to sell. Finally, to respond to a concern raised, something as simple as parking a museum aircraft in a hangar would not absolve a hangar owner of their tax responsibilities. So these hangars were going to be generating tax. You would have more tax revenue today had this not happened. So if y'all wanted to go this route where we can protect both parties, we'll entertain it. And you'll also notice nowhere in the 31 questions was a question about the insurance that they later voted to terminate on. They told us in 2019 not to worry about the insurance because we went all over that. And I don't want to rehash the past too much, but I think it's important for people to know that we've tried to answer. We did answer every question. This isn't the only set of questions. There was another 28 questions that we answered as well. And this, finally, Adam, you're not seeing these questions, but the city got these questions and they walked out of executive session and they voted to effectuate the terms of the contract. But what they were counting on was a high appraisal at a later date. And that high appraisal never came in and the city never met.
What, was the property appraised before an agreement was signed originally?
No, sir. What happened is that the first time the Airfield Foundation was told that the lease was void is when Commissioner Moyes told Manager Gustanzon that Robert Butler was on the airport board. Robert Butler was not on the airport board, had never been on the airport board, had never been asked to be on the airport board, and even to this day has never been at an airport meeting. And I don't know that you've ever been to an air show.
No, I've not.
He's not even to an air show. So we were told that the contract was void then. We pushed back. Then it turned into, well, it didn't go up for bids and notice. And we said, well, bids and notice don't apply to contracts made with independent foundations. And then it turned into fair market value, which we didn't fight. You can see in emails we sent to the city that said, hey, we're willing to talk options. We can pay, but it's going to be fair. They solicited an appraisal after the contract was signed, and it came back, according to them, too low. It was $5,000 they paid to a licensed appraiser, and they wouldn't even hand it over for 2 years. In fact, every time a PIR was put in for the appraisal, the city would not provide it, and I had to get on the council before I saw it, and it was appraised for roughly $5,700 an acre, which ironically is the same value the city, the same council that's fighting the airfield, sold the college 42 acres right at that price point with no tax revenue because it's owned by the college, no business because it's owned by the college, no bids and notice. You know, everything that was thrown up against the airfield, they didn't apply that, but they used that same appraisal number. So to answer your question, I apologize for so long. In short, it was not appraised before the contract was signed. So if we do a new contract, I think it would need to have the value of the land. And then if you want your hangar restored, it would need to have the value of the hangar. And we don't want to be the one restoring it. We want that number to be where we pay a third party to restore it. So that could be a quote that we won't even solicit. That needs to be a quote that the city council solicits, which they have started that process.
Now, I was thinking through any of the other due diligence issues that you or the city would need to know about before anything's amended or modified or changed or new drafting. Because, anytime you have people come in after the fact and say, well, we didn't do it right, well, you had an opportunity to do it right. What else did you think you needed? When you think through what are what are speed bumps that need to be handled, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what the law is or what the protocols are for selling an airfield. You mentioned that email earlier about Page and some about DPS or I'm sorry, TxDOT, and I don't know what those regulations are. I'd have to research that and find out what they're talking about. But those are other forms of due diligence, but I understand you weren't selling the runway anyway, but staying with the city.
No, sir. It was going to be transferred over.
Okay.
That's the reason for that, and we would have never agreed to the contract if it didn't include the runway, because then it's the city's responsibility, and then that is a hostage situation waiting to happen in the future, or a maintenance liability on the city, and a insurance liability.
Right.
But there was a reversion clause. And that's where we thought the foundation going into 2021, October of 2021, we thought we were going to be paying for the airfield. Until Mayor Casey said, I want the city to keep the hangar in case we get the runway back. Commissioner Butler can speak on that because he was there. That caught me off guard, that caught everybody off guard, and that made everybody at the Airfield Foundation concerned. Justifiably, I was the only one not concerned that it was staying with the city. Everybody wanted the city out of it because, frankly, the city has a reputation that it cannot be trusted. Everybody told me not to make that deal because the city was keeping the hangar.
So, Adam, if I could, I'd like to jump in on a couple of things since Mr. Calvert pointed it out. So, and this will end up being a little long, kind of like Gary was just saying, but one of the questions that Mr. Calvert asked us is what we wanted as a council. And I do think it's important as members of the commission to state how we feel about stuff. And so I think for this town, the college is important, the interstate is important, the railroad is important, the Roaring Ranger Museum is important. What Mr. Castle is doing at the Hilltop is important. The airfield is important. Our historical churches are important. We have more assets in this town than so many communities in the state of Texas, and we're not taking advantage of them. But the other thing is we do have historical ties to these things, and you can sell it, but you'll never get it back. So I would like to state, to your point earlier, Mr. Calvert, is if I had a choice, first, I wouldn't blame you for walking away tomorrow. What you've went through is more than anybody could reasonably expect. And the city would have yet again another tremendous loss. But I will tell you, even if you walk away tomorrow, if there's individuals out there that think I'm going to vote for selling a historical airfield to gain $1 million or $2 million, we've got $1 million in the EDC right now, that can never be recovered, and we don't know how that money will be spent, I would never vote for that. I'm just telling you now. Others might. I'm just one person. But the other thing I would say is I was very excited for the hangar to become a keystone piece of the city, like the Roaring Ranger Museum, with billboards on the interstate inviting people to come see both museums any day during the week and have their kids learn about it, learn when the next fly-in is going to be, learn when the next Roaring Ranger Days is going to be in, And it's so incredibly frustrating to keep missing these opportunities. And again, we have opportunities. So I'm not in favor, to your point, of selling that property just to put money in the bank that we don't know how it'll be spent in the future. We're having challenges with our budget right now where money has been misspent. I'd rather have the investment in our history and to keep our land. I would still love for that airfield hangar to be rebuilt. Things have changed since then. Since then, you had to defend, or the airfield had to defend themselves in court. They didn't have an opportunity not to do wild thieves, regardless of how the court findings fell out. And they lost investors, which they can't recover. Now,
There's also a second lawsuit still pending, and the city of Ranger has a restraining order on it for the termination.
so if it was a perfect day for me, it may not match your perfect day, but I think I would like to believe that it would match a lot of the people in this town, because we would have a museum that our kids could continue to see. I mean, this past year, you had an aircraft fly in. I managed to break loose from work and I went down there. I think you were down there as well. And I've never seen an antique airplane where the inside was all wooden.
Oh, you're talking about not the flying in air show, you're talking about the tri-motor.
Just
with the-
people that
the one
were
airplane.
willing to
Yeah.
come visit throughout the year to give people in the community the opportunity to see once in a lifetime aircraft. So the bottom line is, I would like for you to stay. I think it's going to take some, and I say you, I mean the foundation. I think it's going to take some work on both parts for that to happen. Usually when you do a compromise, we're all going to lose compared to where we were 3 years ago. But if we can go forward, maybe we can salvage where we each give a little or lose a little. But to the point where the foundation leaves or goes, if there's anybody out there hoping that they get an opportunity to purchase that airfield for anything other than an antique airfield, I would personally vote against it. I don't know about the other council.
Well, if you run the numbers on the taxes alone, these hangars, they're frankly wealthy individuals, and they were gonna be paying on average of about $1,000 a month in taxes to live in their own hangar. So even if you built just 10, which we were planning on 20 around the perimeter, but just 10 hangars at $1,000 a month they would be paying into Eastland County taxes, college, school, city, and Eastland County. Those 10 hangars, $120,000 a year.
And that doesn't count the auxiliary benefit of businesses brought into town, people that can talk with us about how to moving the city forward. So we've lost a lot more than taxes, but I would
Well, my
hope that we
point
can
is,
still
the city
receive it.
was gonna be getting money for the land essentially because the people were willing to move in because of the foundation. These people weren't looking to move from Florida to their business here because they were moving to Ranger. They were moving to the airfield because of what the airfield is and it represents and their foundation and their slice of antique airplane heaven. And Ranger had to screw it up like a soup and a sandwich, man. I mean, you're talking in less than 10 years, there would have been $1 million in taxes paid into the county. Well, what's that over 20 years or 30?
For the city and other council members, I think as a municipality, we take a step backward because we're going to lose on some of this stuff. Right now, if the foundation leaves, because there's a severance clause and we basically broke the lease, then the way I understand it is we either have to buy that hangar or you tear it down and take it with you. The current hangar, we would have to pay for a museum to be built there. We may end up having to do that anyway, but I think the museum is important. But without the hangar that's currently there, that's operational, what aircraft would ever land at that field without having a place to house during inclement weather. So we have to purchase that hangar anyway. So regardless of all the different theories that are out there, the reality is that airfield only exists if we end up purchasing that hangar, if the airfield leaves. The old hangar only becomes a museum if we invest in it anyway. And if we don't, then it becomes a mesquite field.
Quickly.
And we see that all over town all the time.
Robert, to quote you, I concur with everything you said here. And I think it'd be stupidity on our part to not volunteer or the foundation to stay and rebuild our airport. We need that airport.
And potential investors.
Well, there's been a lot said and a lot done. I mean, there's damage all the way around in this situation. But Adam, one of the questions that I had with the previous attorney that was representing City of Ranger, I believe that was Mr. Fort, I asked what happens if the city were to sell that airport, and his research led him to believe that if we sold our airport, that those funds could only go towards the construction of another airfield. Do you know if that's true or not?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't know that that's true. I'm not going to say they're wrong. I know there's some restrictions for parkland.
It's in the statutes.
Off the top of my head, I do not know the answer to that question. I will certainly find out because I don't want to give you the wrong information. I just have to let's see what the issues are with that. That's not ringing a bell, but that doesn't mean it's not right. Again, I'm not. I've had some experience with an airfield. It was in Cleburne, but the city owned that airfield and they leased hangar space, which is a very typical arrangement. Jim knows that, but that we never came across those issues. It may have something to do with like federal funds or state funds, because sometimes those funds are used to extend runways and do some improvements. But let me see if I can get my arms around what the issues are there, and I'll definitely get you an answer.
Okay.
Vicki, did you have any comments?
I think it's important for everybody, including the council, to understand why that termination clause was put in there on the paying for the hangar. When that was presented to the council in 2017 with the EFM lease, Eagle Flying Museum, that was paramount for EFM to begin there, and the city council said, what is this in here about a hangar in Granbury and Weatherford paying for what it's worth there? And what we explained, because I was with Scott at that meeting, is that the only thing that protects a city or protects an airport from being closed in the state of Texas is that if you sell an airport, the taxpayer money and grants that community was given, I believe for 15 or 20 years, has to be paid back to the state in full. So for instance, meaning if Eastland can close their airport immediately, they have that right, but they would have to pay back $6-7 million in grants to the state for closing that airport. Granbury, their hangar runway expansion in the last couple of years was $21 million. So they would owe over $20 million if Granbury, and they could just close it. There's nothing that prevents a council from closing an airport. And we understood that. But Ranger has never collected TxDOT funds and are limited to that year period anyway. Meaning that we could build a hangar out there without that protection and the city could close the airfield at will. And then we're out of luck. And so what we said to the council, and Knight Law Firm agreed because they put in their Knight Law Firm written contract, was if you're going to up and close the airfield on us in a couple of years because some pilot's wife is with the mayor or somebody gets mad, and I use that example. If there's somebody with a political axe to grind, there's nothing protecting us. So if you're going to close free, if the city terminates the lease early for cause, they owe for the building. Which means if we stop mowing the grass and let mesquites grow up, or we don't have insurance, that's under the definition of for cause. Am I correct in that assumption, Adam?
Yeah, usually there's, for cause means you're not performing a provision of the contract.
Exactly. So even if we weren't performing a provision of the contract and the city terminates early, the line they signed that Knight Law Firm said this is a legal, good, binding contract in 2018 or 2018 with Eagle Fly Museum, 2018 with Ranger Airfield Maintenance Foundation, and in 2022 with the amendment, and then later in 2022 with the, we're going to effectuate the terms of the amendment. Over and over again, the city said we're okay with that. Means if you do want to sell, just pay for the hangar, but you've expressed you don't want to.
Well, I mean, that's just me. I mean, and like I said, I don't speak for the rest of the council, but, you know, one of the things that I have a concern from, and in my history and my experiences, when you make a decision to stop something, anybody can sit there and say, let's stop that, let's break that, let's do away with that. The question that comes after that, okay, so what do we do now? And that's one of the frustrations that I've had this past couple of years is I've heard a lot of people say, let's take it away from the Airfield Foundation. Fine. Let's sell it. Fine. You can say those things. But what I've never heard a single person say is if they take it away from them, if it's going to remain an antique airfield, who is going to manage it? Are we going to have to pay somebody to manage it? Will we have to start building hangars to lease out? What is the plan if we don't do this plan? And the other thing that I haven't heard, and let's say we sell it for $2 million, which I don't think we can get in any way, form, or fashion.
That would be over $24,000 an acre.
But if we sold it for $2 million, I haven't heard a single plan from a single individual, and my email is on the website. Anybody can come talk to me at any time. I serve at the will of the entire community, but I haven't heard a single person say, well, this is what we do with the $2 million. And have a plan. So you're going to sell something without even a plan of what you're going to do with the assets that you get.
I have seen example streets, the pool.
Yeah, but see, and those are easy examples. And again, I played in a rougher world. In my world, they say, okay, how much and what are you going to spend on the pool? How much and what are you going to spend on the street? How much and what are you going to spend on the water and wastewater system? How are you going to integrate that with the grant systems? What grant systems are you going to put in for? What gaps are you going to fill? And so I guess that's my only point. It sounds like I'm kind of being sarcastic, but it's realistic, and it's the way things work. And if you're going to get rid of something, if you go sell your car, you better plan on how you're going to get around. If you sell it for more, you're going to buy a used car, or you're going to have a maintenance bill. If you do a new car, are you going to have to pay the higher prices? What rate are you going to get? Is insurance going to go up? It's more than just, hey, I got $10,000 equity in my car, I'm going to go sell it. And so I feel like that for the entire community, as we discuss this, if the decision we come to, or if the airfield decides to leave, we got a lot of work to plan on what we're going to do. And it needs to be a clear plan where the city benefits, like we were going to do, or we had the potential to do before this happened. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. That's about all I've got to have to say on it. But I do represent the city, And if y'all, if citizens contact me and say otherwise, I'm gonna support the citizens, but I haven't had anybody contact me to tell me that they wanna get rid of the antique airfield forever.
So we've certainly seen what won't work in a contract. Jared, do you think we can negotiate a viable contract with the foundation that will benefit both sides?
So long as the foundation is protected, like the city wants to be protected, and it is done in good faith, I don't see why we couldn't. But this idea of you get no protections and we have immunity is, nobody should stand behind that. Like me or hate me. I see some of the people that complain online on their own personal pages about big government, and they're cheering that no evidence got heard in court because of immunity.
Well,
And the city, look, man, it survived over a century, 2 world wars, a Great Depression, hostile councils. Somebody said once they should put a dump ground out there in the 90s or late 80s. Dad told me about that, where a mayor said, we'll just sell them the airport if they'll come here. And I'm like Eastland or Granbury, and their airfields got paved over. So there's this one survivor in the whole country. And that's why people with means and wealth and expertise and connections and success were willing to come here. And you've got one shot. And I don't want to see it die under me, because I'll live with that regret for the rest of my life, that I didn't fight hard enough, that I didn't fight long enough, that I didn't do enough. And it survived 115 plus years, and it died under me. So I would like to see it saved. I want to, if I restore that hangar and I leave, me personally, I can live in peace, and I'll never come back to this town, if that's what I choose to do. But I did what I said I would do. I always try to do what I said I would do. And people that are claiming that it's greed or I'm a thief, I don't know many people that raise $1.5 million with their nonprofit and not even pay themselves a secretarial fee. Never have I paid myself. I get checks for reimbursements, and all those expenses are accounted for.
I think we can all certainly appreciate the amount of work you've done and the passion that you bring.
But that's why people are willing to come here.
Exactly. And I think we can all appreciate that. The negativity surrounding this entire situation. This was voted on multiple times, approved multiple times. And in my mind, we should have been miles down the road. We should have had all this built. We should be celebrating the win. But here we are with the blowed up contract, animosity throughout the town that just continues to rip the town apart, and it's misinformation, it's lies, it's half truths, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of what this has done to my town. I am sick and tired of it. Social media has become something I can't even look at anymore. It's ridiculous. And all of this started over one situation, and I want to put that behind us, and I want to negotiate a contract that works. I want to see that hangar restored. I want to see the air show back, and I want to see that same passion that continued year after year after year. I've got grandkids that live here. I want them to have something to appreciate and that they can physically go see. I want kids to want to stay here after they graduate high school. Everybody just gets in the car and moves off. I've had it with that. I've had it with that whole mentality. And I want us to negotiate a working contract that will be in agreement with everybody involved. And I want to continue to do it in open sessions where we involve the public, nothing behind closed doors. We have nothing to hide. This is the most transparent group that I've seen in my lifetime. And that will get ridiculed on social media. But I could care less about the opinions of me because what I want is a better ranger.
So we have to do what's fair to both sides.
Exactly.
Unfortunately for both sides, we're both a little worse off, but I'm like you. My grandkids came down last summer. I haven't been to the air show because I haven't came in during the air show. But I drove by and I said, Amelia Earhart flew in there. And we came back and we looked at the pictures and we looked at some of the stuff that was on the airfield website. And we also drove by the college and we looked at the National Guard Armory that was there. And we talked about that. And my grandkids, both of their parents, my daughter is a former Marine, her husband's a former Marine. I think everybody in town's probably tired of hearing about my military service. But, you know, I come from a military family, and the fact that we had people serve during the war, I mean, President Trump right now is wanting to talk about the victories that we've had as a country. And that happens because we're well trained, we're prepared. And Ranger, with the oil boom during World War I, with the airfield, we've had opportunities to participate in that even beyond the large number of people that have volunteered from their town. And so that, I think it's going to cost us both now, but I don't want to lose it myself.
This picture's from 1939, and the gentleman on the right, his name was Garland Montgomery. Went to high school in Ranger, learned to fly at the airfield, and I get choked up even thinking about this guy. Got no family tie to him, nothing, but I get emotional about it because he learned to fly at Ranger, volunteered to fight in World War II, got his wings in the Army Air Corps, became left seat captain of a B-17, got through all of his bomber training here, and he was lost crossing the Atlantic, didn't even make it to England. Died on the crossing with his whole crew, 10 guys in his B-17. And when I mow, I think about Garland and Charlie Whitefield and Mellinger Jacoby and Troy Taylor and R.P. Davis and Joe Collins, Tommy Strong, Mayfield, Pearson. Benefield had an airplane out there for a while. But I think about that, and Earhart, I don't want to dying under me.
Well, Adam, back to you. We hope that you feel, if we're going forward with this, and this was a discussion, this is not a decision, no action taken, but if we all go home and think about this for a week and a half, and then we come back and make a decision, and we get, as council members, we get input from the citizens, please not on Facebook. My email is on the website. Email us. We will include it. Better yet, come up here, and if you don't agree, make your case. Make your case here,
Absolutely.
where we're making the decision. But Adam, do you think that you can put together a contract that protects the equities of both sides?
Yeah, I really do. It's really super frustrating to hear about, you know, I like to write agreements that everybody is happy with. We all move on down the road and we're successful. It just seems like this talking, and all of you sound like you're on the same page. Everybody in the room sounds like, hey, I really want this building to be restored. I want that to be something that we're all going to be proud of. And you have a guy in the room that really wanted to make that happen. And so it seems like you're not really that far off of coming to an agreement. You know, I know that Jared has some, absolutely rightfully has some reservations, but I also know he has a vision. And I don't think the vision he has is far off, if any, from the vision that y'all actually have for your community. And so, I mean, I hear a lot of, almost everything I hear, there's a lot of consensus amongst y'all, and even you know, Jared probably agreed that even the previous council there was consensus about what was good for the community. So to me, the fight is
I want to ask
less
you a
amongst
question.
y'all and more about this public, whatever it is in the city that's going on. And it's kind of interesting the comment about maybe we need to have discussions in the open, in the open session. That may be. I think once you have your basis, then you come out and you can go over the agreement with the public. And I don't know why the public didn't. Maybe they just didn't understand there was an agreement or what the agreement said. But there's, once you have it, there's a reason why you can't post it online and say, hey, this is the agreement we have. You can read it for yourselves. So I don't know where it went sideways, and I hate hearing this story because I think you had some really good intentioned people, that just in somehow got sideways. But yeah, I think to answer your question, yes, I feel like we can get agreement everybody can be really happy with and protect everyone's interest. Put some measures in there. I like having backup plans, and I like having protections. And if everything goes well, we never use them. If it starts going sideways, we have some tools, and if it really gets bad, then we have other remedies. So I think there's lots of ways to structure something like that.
Okay, I have a question from one of the members in the audience.
I want to know,
Yeah.
so everything was fine with this contract, it had been signed, everything was good, and then one person changed their mind and said, no, that's not a fair value, I'm not gonna do it? Is that basically what happened?
That has,
Basically it.
yes,
So it
that's-
basically derailed everything, so everybody in the city was good with what Jared was doing and the fact that he was wanting to make our town better, except for this one person. And then they've cost us thousands upon thousands of dollars fighting all this. I just wanted to find out for sure. I've heard so many rumors, and I wanted to know if that was the truth. Because from what I understood, everything was great. And then my second question is, has anybody ever taken care of the airfield out there in our city?
There were people in the past, yes, ma'am.
Because the only one I've ever known since this boy was 9 years old is this young man right here. He's the only one that I've ever seen out there working.
RP,
Huh?
RP Davis. now.
RP, yes, you're right, RP
He
did.
was-
But I'm talking about since the old guys left. I'm talking about the new generation. Do we have a single volunteer in our town willing to go out there and take care of it like this man does? Or is it going to turn, you will? So that'll be somebody. There really is.
If I could, I will say there was more than one person. I mean, nobody individually does something by themselves. They have other people in the community that support them, and that's completely appropriate.
Well, I would just, like I say, I
But
was
they should
curious.
come up here, and that should be part of that discussion for the city.
Yeah.
And it should be done in the open with all parties to make sure that it works.
Well, like I say,
out.
I was just wondering who would take over the maintenance if Jared leaves. Who is going to take over the maintenance of that airfield? Who's going to be responsible? He's
The-
going to
the-
go out there, or he's going to keep it mowed.
The
He's
other,
going to take care of everything.
the other builders, that was the plan.
But no, I'm talking about if nothing happens, if they don't sign a contract with you, who's going to maintain our airport? Where are we going to get the money to keep that structure good and up and going? I would like to know because Ranger's a poor town.
We hope.
The only choice,
hope it
the only
doesn't
thing
come
I
to
could see was the what he was doing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
that. I said, we hope it doesn't come to that.
I pray it doesn't either, but I just finally decided, I try to stay out of politics. I really do because all it does is create hate for each other. The things I've heard said by people in this town from other people is absolutely disgusting.
Well, I invite everybody for or against to come to our future discussions. We want to hear what you think. If you don't want to come, then send an email to one of the council members, to the city manager. Send that email to us so that we can consider your comments and we'll respond back. But one of the things that we can't do is it's very difficult to have a discussion when you don't know who you're talking to.
well, I would also,
Social media is not the place if we want to be a transparent town and we want to act like a town, we need to grow into a town and we need to show up if we're going to go up. That's just it. We need to come down here together and work things out, because nobody should be on social media trying to rule anything or discuss anything. It's just
I will say,
ridiculous.
you know, people that hate me will say, well, Jared got on social media. That was a last resort. For a year, I made no mention of the lawsuit on social media because I had the best interests of the town and the airfield at heart, because I didn't want to muddy the waters with people that wanted to build in our town. And then finally, after about a year, you know, people were calling going, oh, you're never going to get the Jenny flying, are you? You know, and they didn't know that we were being hamstrung. And so I finally had to go.
The opinions of everybody to be a part of our discussion.
We need honest debate, not anonymous debate.
Yes.
You
Amen.
know who I'm debating.
I like that. And I just want that on the record. I mean, we want everybody to be a part of this, whether you like it or not. This is the time to voice the opinions.
And I'm for the pool. I will continue to be for the pool the rest of the time I'm here. I got my opinions, just like everything else. But I'm going to be for the pool. I'm going to be for the museum. I'm going to be for new business. I'm going to be for all those things. But anybody, I mean, y'all can tell from the meeting, you can come talk politics with me anytime, any place, and I will talk. But you will never see me make a political comment on Facebook. One, it's not, in my opinion, it's not appropriate for me to do so. That's me. But I will talk to anybody. I'll share my opinion. If you hate it, then come up here and tell everybody Robert said this and I absolutely hate it. And this is why we should go another direction, and it won't hurt my feelings. I may argue with you a little bit, but we do want you up here. We do want this to be an open debate.
Amen. We can hash it out here. We can't hash it out on social media. I've quit responding. I've quit looking at it. Boss Archer's tired of that. So,
But we don't even want this to become a social media debate. What we want to do is find a way to work with the airfield if they're still interested in keep our historical airfield intact, knowing that it's going to have to be a compromise.
I want to keep all of our history together as much so as we can. You know, Ranger is fairly famous.
It is a history-rich little town.
I mean-
To have no more than what we haven't had a lot of history happen here.
When they blew in the McCleskey here, when the Ranger oil fields developed, that was a deciding factor in World War I. They couldn't compete with the amount of resources that were coming out of the United States. Right here in this part of the country, we're a footnote in history.
Well, I go up with the Ranger Veteran Support Group, as do a lot of other people. Justin, a lot of people have come up there with us, and we've put out flags. And I will tell you, the number of flags that we put on our cemetery shows the commitment that this town has had, not only to itself, but in service of the country. And the airfield is a piece of that. Just like the oil field museum needs to be restored, because that's a piece of it. And so we almost kind of owe it to all those people that served and gave their lives to do more than just put up flags on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. You know, let's show that they did something that was for an end game that was worthwhile.
Vicky had a question.
If we can come up with a contract that works for both city and the airfield, do you think the investors or future investors will come back?
I think that would show that was kind of just a bad chapter in the city's history of not honoring or trying to renegotiate through a meeting. I mean, we were being denied meeting requests. Everything was being decided, like no posted agenda, no outside vote. Everything was being done. We vote to do what we did in executive session. Nobody knew what was going on. And so if the city goes to being transparent and we agree and we build or restore the hangar, I do believe people will come back. People have still expressed interest. I think they're not online, those people, but they have expressed interest. Let us know when it's done.
Well, you weren't part of that executive session that we had last time, but, you know, one of the things that we came out of executive session, and I hope that we're sharing a lot more than we've seen in the past, but I hope we can get away from executive sessions completely unless it's a personnel action on somebody in the city, or if there's an investor that's asking us to protect their interest or they can get their business built. But I have to tell you, I know we put you in the airfield in kind of a tough situation coming down and asking for this open workshop. And I appreciate you participating in it, and I appreciate the other council members, you know, for having this, because this is the only way to solve problems.
100%.
So to close out for our next meeting, what do you want me to tell the other directors? Or to
That we've
have
heard-
another follow-up meeting and we're looking to renegotiate?
So,
Yes.
Adam, would it be best for us to take that original contract as the airfield and as the council members and start making cliff notes on it, and us get input from citizens, and then come back with those cliff notes, and try to merge those together, and then come back to you? Would that be a good way forward? You got more experience with this than we do.
I like it. I mean, again, you know, usually when you write a contract, we get them by the time that most of the details are ironed out. And then I always have some questions, you know, that are the specifics. Well, who's doing this? Who's doing that? That kind of stuff. But if you get the broad brushstrokes and the main pieces, and get that to me, I can get something for you that meets all those requirements and then tries to cover the bases you need covered. You know, certainly I think for a little while you don't need me, but there's a point in time where we start reducing this to writing and get our template together, because once you start writing a contract, you start asking questions that may not have been answered or asked, and so you sit down and kind of start thinking through the process a little bit. But I think get your big brush strokes, and I'm happy to hop in whenever y'all are ready.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time, Adam.
Adam, we appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're gonna get off here so we can go into another meeting.
All right. Well, I look forward to talking to you soon. I hope everything goes well tonight.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
So I think we're all in agreement that we need to move forward in contract negotiations with the Ranger Airfield.
I will say that you know, when we do, and obviously one voice, I mean, y'all say if you feel otherwise, we've been doing a lot of meetings trying to play catch up. And I know it impacts people very.
And we can discuss when we're ready to come back to the table. Your group look at the contract, we'll be looking at the contract, and then we'll work together to iron out an agreement.
All right.
All right, so,
Start meeting 2 at 5:30, right?
yes. All right, so thank everybody for
I have
coming.
another, is there a reason why it can't go back to the old contract?
Well, there's some stuff in there that didn't protect them. It was more one-sided, so
It was a copy and paste as well.
yeah,
So you
there.
have
So
to-
it's actually to y'all, to you the airfield bid or bid?
Both.
Both, so it just wasn't a really bad contract.
Well, I don't think it was a bad contract. I'd like to clarify that, but I do think, because the issues could have probably been worked out as we worked them out together. And we could have made future amendments as we needed to as we went forward. And we didn't do that. But now there have been some changes. Now they have to be protected for us claiming government immunity. And so then we have to look at some performance clauses. And they have additional land that they can contribute to that. And then we do have court results that we have to consider as well.
What
So
exactly does government immunity mean?
we can't.
Probably adjourn and then
Yeah.
we could answer her questions
Yeah.
respectfully.
Yeah, we need to adjourn and take a little break for the next meeting. So agenda item number 3, discuss, consider adjournment. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right.